World War II did not just reshape borders, it reshaped warfare itself. Before 1939, many armies still relied on weapons and tactics that had changed little since the First World War. Bolt-action rifles, artillery barrages, and massed infantry assaults. But during World War II, the speed of innovation accelerated beyond anything humanity had seen before. New machines were created with a single purpose: total war. Factories, laboratories, and entire nations became part of a global arms race. Engineers were pushed to design weapons that were faster, deadlier, and more efficient. By the end of the war, the world had entered the first era of truly modern warfare, and it all began with the weapons of World War II. The most common weapon on the battlefield was the infantry rifle. For soldiers fighting in Europe, Africa, and the Pacific, the rifle determined survival. Many armies still used bolt-action rifles. Germany used the Karabiner 98K. The Soviet Union relied heavily on the Mosin-Nagant. The United States issued the famous M1 Garand. The M1 Garand was revolutionary for its time. Unlike traditional bolt-action rifles, it was semi-automatic, allowing soldiers to fire rapidly without manually cycling the weapon. General George S. Patton famously called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. The difference was dramatic. A soldier armed with a semi-automatic rifle could fire faster, react quicker, and suppress enemy positions more effectively. This change marked the beginning of the modern infantry firearm. If rifles were the soldiers' personal weapons, machine guns were the backbone of battlefield dominance. Germany deployed one of the most influential weapons of the war, the MG-42. The MG-42 was terrifying. Its rate of fire reached nearly 1,200 rounds per minute. The sound it produced was often described as a ripping cloth or a buzzsaw. Allied soldiers learned quickly to fear it. Machine guns like the MG-42 allowed small units to deliver massive volumes of suppressive fire. Entire tactical doctrines were built around them. Infantry squads often maneuvered around the machine gun. It was the center of battlefield firepower. World War II also transformed armored warfare. Tanks had existed since World War I, but they became far more powerful during the Second World War. Germany introduced the Panther and Tiger tanks. The Soviet Union fielded the legendary T-34. The United States deployed the M4 Sherman. Each represented different philosophies of warfare. German tanks focused on heavy armor and powerful guns. The Soviet T-34 emphasized mobility and simplicity. The American Sherman prioritized mass production and reliability. Thousands of tanks clashed across battlefields from Normandy to the Eastern Front. Armored warfare had arrived. As tanks became stronger, soldiers needed new ways to destroy them. This led to the development of portable anti-tank weapons. One of the most important innovations was the shaped charge warhead. These weapons focused explosive energy into a narrow jet capable of penetrating armor. This technology led to weapons such as the American bazooka, the German Panzerfaust, and the British Piat. For the first time, a single infantry soldier could destroy a heavily armored tank. This drastically changed battlefield tactics. Artillery remained the most destructive force of the war. Massive guns launched shells across kilometers of battlefield. The Soviet Katyusha rocket launchers created terrifying barrages of explosive rockets. These weapons were inaccurate, but they covered large areas with devastating fire. The psychological impact was enormous. When the rockets screamed across the sky, soldiers often described the experience as pure chaos. Artillery caused the majority of casualties in World War II. It was not glamorous, but it was deadly. World War II also marked the age of strategic bombing. Aircraft such as the B-17 Flying Fortress and the Lancaster bomber carried massive payloads of bombs deep into enemy territory. Cities, factories, Railroads and industrial centers became targets. The idea was simple: destroy the enemy's ability to fight. Air superiority became essential. Fighter aircraft like the Spitfire, P-51 Mustang, and Messerschmitt Bf-110 battled across the skies. The outcome of air battles often determined the success of ground operations. Toward the end of the war, a new technology appeared: jet aircraft. Germany introduced the Me-262, the first operational jet fighter. It was faster than any propeller aircraft in the sky. Although it arrived too late to change the outcome of the war, the jet engine would shape the future of air combat for decades. Then came the most powerful weapon ever created: the atomic bomb. In August 1945, the United States dropped nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The destruction was unlike anything seen before. Entire cities were devastated in seconds. The nuclear weapon ended the war, but it also began a new era of warfare, one where humanity possessed the power to destroy itself. By the end of 1945, warfare had changed forever. The war produced advanced tanks, rapid-fire infantry weapons, long-range bombers, early rockets, and nuclear weapons. These technologies would become the foundation for all future military development. But the war had also started something else: an arms race. The world was about to enter a new period of conflict. Not a world war, but something equally dangerous: the Cold War. And the weapons developed in that era would be even more advanced.
Chapter 2: The Cold War Weapons Revolution, 1945 to 1991. In 1945, the world had just witnessed the most destructive war in human history. Cities lay in ruins, millions were dead, and humanity had unlocked a terrifying new power: the atomic bomb. But instead of peace, the end of World War II began something else: a new kind of conflict. Not a war fought directly between superpowers, but a silent struggle of power, technology, and ideology. This was the Cold War, and it triggered the most intense weapons revolution the world had ever seen. The moment nuclear weapons appeared, military strategy changed forever. The United States was the first nation to possess atomic weapons, but the monopoly did not last long. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its own atomic bomb. Suddenly, two rival superpowers possessed the most destructive weapons in history. This began the nuclear arms race. Both sides rapidly expanded their nuclear arsenals. New bombs became more powerful. Thermonuclear weapons, also known as hydrogen bombs, were developed in the early 1950s. These weapons were far more destructive than the bombs used in World War II. Entire cities could disappear in seconds. Military planners created a strategy called mutually assured destruction. If one side launched a nuclear attack, the other would retaliate. Both nations would be destroyed. Ironically, this terrifying balance helped prevent direct war. Peace was maintained through fear. Delivering nuclear weapons became the next challenge. Early atomic bombs had to be carried by aircraft, but aircraft could be intercepted. The solution came in the form of ballistic missiles. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, known as ICBMs, could travel thousands of kilometers through space before striking targets. The missile age had begun. A missile launched from one continent could reach another in less than 30 minutes. The United States and the Soviet Union built vast networks of missile silos. Some missiles were placed underground, others were mounted on mobile launch systems. Soon, submarines entered the equation. Submarines carrying ballistic missiles could remain hidden beneath the ocean for months. This created a new level of deterrence. Even if one country launched a surprise attack, retaliation was guaranteed. While nuclear weapons dominated global strategy, infantry weapons were also evolving. One of the most influential firearms ever created appeared during this period, the AK-47. Designed in the Soviet Union, the AK-47 became famous for its reliability. It could function in mud, sand, extreme heat, and freezing temperatures. Simple, rugged, and easy to use, it spread across the world. Millions were produced. In response, the United States developed the M16 rifle. Unlike older rifles, the M16 used smaller, high-velocity ammunition. This allowed soldiers to carry more rounds while maintaining accuracy. The assault rifle became the standard weapon of modern infantry forces. Lightweight, rapid-firing, deadly effective. The Cold War also transformed aerial warfare. Helicopters had been used during World War II, but their military role expanded dramatically during the Cold War. Helicopters offered something new: mobility. They could transport troops quickly across difficult terrain. They could evacuate wounded soldiers, and eventually they became weapons themselves. Attack helicopters, such as the AH-1 Cobra, were designed specifically for combat. Equipped with rockets, machine guns, and anti-tank missiles, these aircraft could destroy armored vehicles from the air. Helicopters became a key part of modern warfare strategy. They were fast, flexible, and capable of striking targets with precision. By the late Cold War, radar technology had improved dramatically. Aircraft could be detected hundreds of kilometers away. This created a problem. How could aircraft penetrate enemy defenses without being detected? The answer was stealth. Stealth technology reduced the radar signature of aircraft, making them extremely difficult to track. Engineers designed aircraft with special shapes and materials that absorbed radar waves. This led to the creation of the first stealth aircraft, the F-117 Nighthawk. Although it appeared late in the Cold War, it represented a major leap in military technology. Aircraft could now enter heavily defended airspace without being easily detected. While nuclear weapons dominated strategy, conventional military power remained essential. One of the most powerful symbols of military strength was the aircraft carrier. Aircraft carriers functioned as floating air bases. They allowed nations to project power anywhere in the world. A single carrier group could deploy dozens of fighter jets, helicopters, and support aircraft. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union expanded their naval capabilities. Submarines, destroyers, and aircraft carriers became critical tools of global influence. Control of the seas remained vital because whoever controlled the oceans could control trade routes and military logistics. The Cold War extended beyond Earth. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik. This shocked the world. Suddenly, space had become part of military strategy. Satellites could monitor troop movements, track missile launches, and provide communication across continents. The space race quickly became intertwined with military technology. Rockets capable of launching satellites could also deliver nuclear bombs. Space became a new frontier in the competition between superpowers. As technology advanced, another invisible battlefield emerged: electronic warfare. Radar systems could detect incoming aircraft. Communication systems coordinated military operations. This created new opportunities for disruption. Electronic warfare systems could jam radar signals. They could interfere with communications. They could blind enemy defenses. For the first time, warfare extended into the electromagnetic spectrum. Not every battle would be fought with bullets and bombs. Some would be fought with signals. For decades, the Cold War defined global military development. Two superpowers built enormous arsenals, thousands of nuclear weapons, millions of soldiers, massive fleets of ships, aircraft, and missiles. But in 1991, the Cold War came to an unexpected end. The Soviet Union collapsed. The ideological battle that had shaped the world for nearly half a century was over. Yet the weapons created during that period did not disappear. They remained, waiting, because the next era of warfare was already beginning. Closing, the foundation of modern warfare. The Cold War changed how wars would be fought forever. It introduced intercontinental missiles, nuclear deterrence, modern assault rifles, attack helicopters, stealth aircraft, satellite warfare. These technologies laid the foundation for modern military power. But something else was about to change. The next revolution would focus on precision, smart weapons, satellite guidance, and eventually, drones. The battlefield was about to become digital.
Chapter 3: The Age of Precision Warfare, 1991 to 2015. The Cold War ended, but war itself did not. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the world entered a new era. For the first time in nearly half a century, the threat of global nuclear war began to fade. But something else was rising. A new form of warfare, quieter, smarter, and far more precise. Instead of massive armies crashing into each other across continents, wars would now be fought with satellites, sensors, and guided weapons. The battlefield was evolving, and the world was about to witness the birth of precision warfare. In 1991, the world watched a war unlike anything before. When Iraq invaded Kuwait, a U.S.-led coalition launched Operation Desert Storm. For the first time in history, television viewers saw missiles flying through windows, bombs hitting targets with surgical accuracy. These were precision-guided munitions, weapons that could guide themselves to their targets using lasers, GPS, and advanced sensors. Military planners called it a revolution. One guided bomb could destroy what once required dozens of aircraft. The battlefield had changed forever. Throughout the 1990s, technology advanced rapidly. New laser-guided bombs could track targets illuminated by a laser beam. Cruise missiles could travel hundreds of miles while hugging the terrain, avoiding radar before striking with deadly accuracy. Navigation systems connected to satellites allowed weapons to strike within meters of their targets. This meant something extraordinary. War could now be fought with less destruction, but greater efficiency. Entire military doctrines began shifting toward precision strike capability. The goal was no longer overwhelming force. The goal was perfect accuracy. Precision warfare required something critical: information. And that information came from above. Military satellites began monitoring the entire planet, tracking troop movements, scanning radar emissions, and mapping enemy territory. Commanders could now watch the battlefield in near real time. What once took days or weeks of reconnaissance could now happen in minutes. This network of satellites, sensors, and computers became known as network-centric warfare. The battlefield was no longer just land, sea, and air. It had expanded into space and cyberspace. While satellites watched from orbit, a new kind of aircraft began watching from the sky. Unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. Early reconnaissance drones provided surveillance without risking pilots' lives. But soon, drones became something more. They became hunters. Equipped with cameras, radar, and eventually missiles, drones could track targets for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. These machines transformed counterterrorism operations and modern warfare. For the first time, wars could be fought remotely. Pilots could control aircraft from thousands of miles away. The battlefield had no borders anymore. The attacks of September 11, 2001 changed the world. Governments launched the War on Terror, initiating military campaigns in Afghanistan and later Iraq. These wars demonstrated the full power of precision warfare. Special forces guided airstrikes using laser designators. Drones monitored insurgent movements. Satellites provided constant surveillance. Smart bombs destroyed targets with astonishing accuracy. Technology allowed militaries to strike specific individuals, buildings, or vehicles, often within minutes of identifying them. But this new form of warfare also raised difficult questions. What happens when war becomes too easy to wage? By the early 2000s, precision warfare was evolving again. Stealth aircraft such as the F-22 Raptor and advanced bombers could penetrate enemy airspace without being detected by radar. Electronic warfare systems could blind enemy defenses, disrupt communications, and confuse radar networks. Cyber operations began targeting digital infrastructure. Instead of destroying enemy systems with bombs, they could now be disabled with code. The battlefield was expanding once again. War was no longer only physical, it had become digital. By the 2010s, warfare had become deeply interconnected. Every soldier, aircraft, drone, and satellite could share information instantly. This created a battlefield where speed of information determined victory. The side that could detect the enemy first, target them first, strike first, would dominate the fight. Command centers now looked more like technology hubs than traditional war rooms. Massive screens displayed satellite feeds, drone footage, radar signals, and intelligence reports. War had become a data-driven operation. Precision warfare promised cleaner battles, more accurate strikes, less collateral damage, but reality proved more complicated. Technology could reduce destruction, yet war itself remained unpredictable. Mistakes still happened. Targets could be misidentified, civilian areas could still be affected, and the ability to strike anywhere on Earth raised profound ethical and political questions. Who decides when a remote strike is justified? Where does the battlefield truly begin and end? Between 1991 and 2015, the foundations of modern warfare were built. Precision weapons, global surveillance, drone operations, cyber capabilities. All of these technologies reshaped military strategy, but they were only the beginning, because new technologies were already emerging. Artificial intelligence, autonomous drones, hypersonic weapons, quantum computing. The next generation of warfare would not simply be more precise, it would be faster, smarter, and potentially far more dangerous. The age of precision warfare changed how wars were fought, but it also changed how wars were decided. Victory was no longer just about numbers of soldiers or tanks. It was about information, speed, and technological superiority. The battlefield had become a network, a digital ecosystem of sensors, machines, and algorithms. And soon, artificial intelligence would enter the fight. The next chapter of warfare was already beginning.
Chapter 4: AI Warfare, Hypersonic Weapons, and Modern Conflict, 2015 to 2026. War has always evolved with technology. From swords and shields, to rifles and tanks, to missiles and drones. Each era introduced weapons that changed the balance of power. But the years after 2015 introduced something far more profound. War was no longer just about machines. It was about intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Algorithms began analyzing battlefields faster than human commanders. Drones began flying missions without direct human control. And weapons capable of traveling faster than the speed of sound were entering military arsenals. The battlefield was becoming autonomous, digital, and nearly instantaneous. This was the beginning of a new era, the rise of artificial intelligence in war. Artificial intelligence is not a weapon in the traditional sense. It does not fire bullets or launch missiles. Instead, it makes decisions. Modern military AI systems analyze enormous amounts of information in seconds. Satellite imagery, drone surveillance, radar signals, communication intercepts. All of this data can now be processed by AI to identify potential threats. Commanders receive recommendations almost instantly. Targets can be detected, tracked, and classified automatically. What once took hours of analysis can now happen in seconds. Speed has become the new advantage. And in warfare, speed can determine victory. The drone revolution that began in the early 2000s is evolving rapidly. Today, drones are no longer just surveillance tools. They are becoming autonomous combat systems. Small drones can fly in coordinated groups known as swarms. These swarms behave almost like living organisms. Each drone communicates with the others. If one drone is destroyed, the rest adapt instantly. Military researchers believe drone swarms could overwhelm traditional defenses. Imagine hundreds of autonomous aircraft moving together through the sky, searching for targets and striking within seconds. Such systems are already being tested by several countries. The battlefield is no longer limited to large aircraft. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is something small, silent, and intelligent. While artificial intelligence transforms decision-making, another revolution is happening in speed. Hypersonic weapons. These missiles travel at speeds greater than 5 times the speed of sound. That means they can reach targets thousands of kilometers away in minutes. But speed is not the only challenge. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons can maneuver during flight. They can change direction, avoid radar detection, and evade missile defense systems. For defenders, this creates a terrifying problem. There may be almost no time to react. Hypersonic weapons represent a new kind of strategic threat, one where warning times shrink from hours to minutes to seconds. Modern warfare is not always visible. Sometimes the battlefield exists entirely inside computers. Cyber warfare has become one of the most powerful tools of modern conflict. Instead of attacking cities or armies, cyber attacks target infrastructure, power grids, financial systems, communication networks, transportation systems. A successful cyber attack
could shut down an entire nation without firing a single missile. Governments around the world now invest heavily in cyber defense because in the digital age, a line of code can sometimes be as powerful as a bomb. The age of another battlefield has emerged, the battlefield of information. Modern conflicts are increasingly fought not just with weapons, but with narratives. Social media platforms, digital networks, and information campaigns can influence public opinion across the globe. Disinformation can spread faster than facts. Political stability can be challenged by coordinated digital campaigns. This form of warfare is subtle, often invisible, but its impact can be enormous. In the modern world, controlling information can be just as powerful as controlling territory, robotics, and autonomous combat systems. Military engineers are now designing machines that could fight alongside human soldiers. Robotic ground vehicles capable of navigating difficult terrain. Autonomous naval vessels patrolling oceans without crews. AI-controlled defense systems that can identify incoming threats instantly. Some systems are designed purely for defense. Others could eventually carry weapons. This raises difficult ethical questions. How much decision-making should machines be allowed to control? Should an algorithm ever decide when to use lethal force? These questions are becoming more urgent every year because the technology is advancing rapidly. Recent conflicts around the world have already demonstrated the power of these technologies. Drones have become central to modern battlefields. They provide surveillance, they guide artillery, they carry explosives. Small, inexpensive drones can destroy armored vehicles worth millions of dollars. This shift is forcing militaries to rethink traditional strategies. Large, expensive systems may be vulnerable to swarms of smaller autonomous machines. The balance of power is changing once again. Technology is rewriting the rules of war, the ethical dilemma. As weapons become more intelligent, the moral questions become more complex. Who is responsible when an autonomous system makes a mistake? How should nations regulate AI-driven weapons? Should there be global agreements controlling autonomous warfare? Many scientists and policymakers are debating these issues today because once a technology becomes widespread, controlling it becomes very difficult. Humanity now faces a challenge to develop powerful technologies while ensuring they remain under human control. The future of warfare. Looking toward the future, several technologies may shape the next generation of conflict. AI will continue to improve. Autonomous systems will become more capable. Hypersonic weapons may become more common. Cyber warfare will grow more sophisticated. And space may become an active military domain. Satellites are already essential to modern warfare, but future conflicts could involve systems designed to disable or destroy them. The battlefield of tomorrow may extend from the deepest oceans to the edges of Earth's orbit. For thousands of years, warfare has evolved alongside human innovation. Every technological breakthrough has changed how wars are fought. Today, humanity stands at another turning point. AI, autonomous weapons, hypersonic missiles, cyber warfare. These technologies offer incredible power, but they also carry enormous responsibility. The future of warfare will not be defined only by machines. It will be defined by the choices humanity makes about how to use them. Because the most powerful weapon humanity has ever possessed is not technology. It is wisdom. Outro for your channel. If you want to explore the science, technology, and hidden forces shaping the future of our world. Subscribe to Science in Silence, because understanding the future is the first step towards shaping